Good evening, all you gorgeous, fighting mama bears. My name is Chris Elston. You know me better as Billboard Chris. I come from a communist country called Canada. And for nearly 3 years, I have been on a one-of-a-kind journey in order to create awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history. An insane belief system called gender ideology has spread like wildfire throughout the Western world, and our children are being taught the abusive nonsense that they might have been born in the wrong body. Can you imagine telling a child that they were born wrong? What does it even mean? What does it mean to be a transgender child? Nobody can tell you. I know this because I've been traveling across Canada and then the United States, recently England, Scotland, and Ireland as well, standing outside like a crazy person, looking ridiculous, wearing signs, and normally human sandwich board people are not the most reputable people. They're normally talking about how the end is nigh. But to offset that first impression, I don't wear jogging pants, I wear a blazer and try to look as dapper as I can as a human billboard. But this whole ideology, everything they teach is undefinable. No one can tell you what a gender identity is without doing a circular definition where they say, well, it's the gender, you don't identify as or whatever. They can't tell you what a woman is either. Jordan Peterson can. When asked by Matt Walsh, what is a woman? Jordan Peterson said, marry one and find out. I found out that way. But I've got a better definition. I can tell you what a real woman is. A real woman is a mom for liberty. Let's talk briefly about what's happening to kids. These children are being indoctrinated to believe that they're the opposite sex, just because they don't conform to stereotypes, sexist, regressive stereotypes of what it means to be a girl or a boy. I always say there's no right way to be a girl or a boy, because there isn't. That's the body positive message we should be sending. There is no such thing as a transgender child. They're called girls and boys, and they're beautiful just as they are. But today, in the United States, 300,000 children between the ages of 12 and 17 have been diagnosed with this condition called gender dysphoria. That's just the ones we know about for insurance purposes. Tens of thousands of children are getting puberty blockers, many more than that, are receiving the opposite sex's hormones. Kids are getting surgeries. People don't believe it, but we have all the proof in the world from the so-called transgender health experts themselves. I am a father of 2 girls. I became very concerned about this. I started learning about this in 2019, and I'm one of these guys that researches everything. I was obsessing over this in 2020. In July of 2020, a woman in the UK named Kelly J. Keane put up a very controversial poster at the Edinburgh train station. It said, "I love J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter author." It was taken down after one day because some people on Twitter complained. So the government-run train authority took it down. Part of what I'm doing is about our right to freedom of speech. Everyone's talking about this issue now, but a few years ago, almost nobody was talking about it. There were a handful of men talking about this online. James Lindsay was one of them. I'm extremely thankful for him, because when nobody knew who I was and when I was getting defamed by people who should have supported me, he was the first person really who gave me any support and would retweet my stuff. So thank you, James. But people are getting fired in their jobs for acknowledging biological reality. A young boy up in Canada, he's still 17 years old, Josh Alexander, just got kicked out of his Catholic school because he stood up for some girls who didn't want boys in their washroom. He's not allowed to go to school. So I did what any irrational person would do, and I started going out on the street having one conversation at a time. I've had tens of thousands of these conversations. I've been out on the street for probably 2,500 hours. I've been arrested twice after getting assaulted, charged with causing a disturbance, banned from walking on all the streets of downtown Vancouver, until one day before my first court hearing when the Crown prosecutor threw it out, as I knew they would. I've been assaulted close to 40 times. I've had my arm broken by Antifa. But what these crazy people don't understand, and what all these people in masks outside right now yelling at the building don't understand, is that I'm their puppet master. They're doing exactly what I want. They have no ability to think for themselves. They have no understanding of what's actually happening. And every time they use violence to silence, it backfires. I gain more support, more people learn what's going on. And today, this is the #1 issue being talked about all across the Western world. I traveled across Canada for a long time, just standing out on the street by myself. And when I think about what I do, I still think about all these hours I spent out on the street, out in the cold, taking abuse and all that, but forget the negativity. I've had nothing but positivity. More than 90% of the people I run into, people from all walks of life, all political stripes, they agree. Guess what? Democrat voters know that their girls are girls. They know their boys are boys. They don't want their children getting a new name and pronouns at school and having it hidden from them, which is what is happening. There is no support for this except from the radicals and the media and the government and the World Health Organization, because radical activists have infiltrated all of these organizations, but they do not represent reality. We represent reality. The best thing that ever happened to me was when the borders finally opened up. I started coming into the States, and on my very first trip, Tiffany just told you, she was in a hotel room in DC. I was in Texas, first state I went to, because I love Texas. And I was back in my room at night, having just ordered my DoorDash, which is how I always eat on the road. And I joined this Twitter space, and I saw this logo, Moms for Liberty. And they were talking about education, and I thought, that's right down my alley. Let's see what they're talking about. And so I introduced what I was doing. And Tiffany Justice, who is my hero, believed in me and had me on a podcast a few months later. About a week later, I was on a podcast with Ginny Gentles from the Independent Women's Network. Shout out to any of them who are here. And I told them I was heading to Washington, D.C., because I really don't make plans when I travel. I just go outside, and good things happen. Good things happen when you go outside. That's what I always say. And I figure if I went to D.C., well, I might run into some members of Congress, or who knows. But what happened was Tiffany and Ginny got in contact with Jay Richards from the Heritage Foundation, and they put together a conference with about 40 people who are fighting this all across the country. So now I made all these amazing friends. I really have no support up in Canada, but there are all sorts of people fighting this down in the US. And so we had this great conference, and I've just kept coming down to the United States. There's a different spirit down here, and I think it stems all the way back to 1776. This country was born from rebellion, and that spirit has remained. Up there in Canada, we didn't rebel from the Mad King. We just kept going, and honestly, we've never had to protest anything in the history of Canada up until our truckers did a great job last year. And no one believed me, but I said, look, guys and girls, sorry for misgendering. This is going to come to a crashing halt much quicker than anyone expects. This is not going to take 5 years. This is not going to take 10 years. This will be in the history books in 10 years as we look back and say, what the heck happened to humanity? And last August, one of the turning points in this was I tweeted out these videos that Boston Children's Hospital had produced from their gender clinic, where they talk about how things like a little girl trying to pee standing up, your little boy who doesn't want to get a haircut, playing with the opposite gender toys, or trying on a sibling's clothes are a sign that your child is transgender and can be treated. They talk about gender-affirming hysterectomies. And I think everyone kind of thought there's weird things going on in these gender clinics, but when you don't really know, you don't know. And they knew these kids were struggling. These kids, by the way, half of them have autism. Many have suffered sexual abuse, trauma. These are the kids that are being targeted, kids in foster care. These are the most vulnerable children who are being targeted by this ideology. But what happened after those videos went viral was the whole conservative movement started talking about this. All the podcasters, all the media got going. It started a wave of people looking into other children's hospitals. And now, not even 1 year later, 20 states have passed legislation to stop this child abuse. I'm extremely excited for what's coming forward because another hero of mine, Bridget Ziegler, from the Leadership Institute, she had me to an event in Florida a couple months ago, and the Leadership Institute has agreed to help me, and they are going to put on 40 events at universities across the nation. And instead of me just hanging out at universities, getting assaulted and having all that sort of fun, I'm going to be in the universities. And I'm sure some riots will break out and all that sort of fun stuff, but again, that just always backfires spectacularly. So just wait until we see where we're at a year from now. So here's the deal. We're just going to keep going, having one conversation at a time. And when enough moms and dads understand what's happening to our kids, we are going to stop this evil assault on our children. I've shed blood, sweat, and tears literally to help stop this child abuse, and I always knew that the right people would come along. I didn't know it was going to be an army of moms. You didn't exist when I started. And look what you've done in 2.5 years. So I'm extremely fortunate and thankful to all of you. It is the honor of my life to fight alongside you. And we are going to stop this child abuse. Thank you.